to Mark Gibson Humanoist channel. Accountant with designations CPA, MBA, CMA, ACPA, ASA, Australia. Enjoy learning!
So, good morning, class, and welcome to your financial market class. Today, we'll discuss about risk and return. So, the risk-return trade-off to attract investors to take more risk, an investment should provide higher expected returns. No, that's why the higher the risk, the higher the return. Now, take a look at this graph. No? So, this line represents the risk-return trade-off. No? So imagine na lang class, no? In real life. No? Of course, every time you invest, you expect something in return. No? And palagi natin sinasabi is the riskier the investment, then we expect higher return. Kasi nga naman, why would you even think of entering or venturing into an investment with the with higher risk of failing, no? For example, if you do not expect higher returns, no? Kaya nga all of the, this represents investment return, and this, on the other hand, represent the investment risk, no? So that's why all of the points that will fall here represent good investment. So meaning the return is sufficient to compensate for the perceived risk. Now, on the other hand, all of the points that will fall here represents bad investments. No? So the return is insufficient to compensate for the perceived risk. Now, what is risk? Now, risk is the exposure to uncertainty or danger resulting to changes in the expected return in a given investment, the chance that some unfavorable event will occur. So ranking of risk, no, in terms of the security. So number one, treasury bills or bonds. Then we have bonds or the corporate bonds, mutual funds, and the stocks. No? So we say that the treasury bills, this is the less risky investment in terms of the securities. Why? Because treasury bills are being backed or guaranteed by the government. And so, stocks are said to be the security with higher risk. No? Well, in such a way that stocks are stock prices are driven by different factors, no, be it internal or external to the company. Now let's talk about probability. So probability is a listing of all possible outcomes and the probability of each occurrence. So for instance, we have recession. Well, these are the state of the economy. No? So recession, normal, so meaning it's just the status quo, and then prosperity. Now we provide probability distributions, or we express it as PI, 0.20 for recession, meaning there's a 20% chance that we enter into recession. And then 60% chance that it will just stay as normal. And then 20% chance that will prosper. So the expected return is the return after considering the probabilities of occurrence. The state of the economy, individuals' expected outcomes, needless to say, the risk has already been factored in this type of return. Now, to demonstrate this to you further, let's have discussion problem number 1 on probability. So, the requirement is to determine the expected return on their planned investment. So Piolo Corporation is planning to invest in Ayala Corporation. The firm expects that the possible returns are dependent on the state of the economy. So given are the states of the economy, we have recession, normal, and prosperity. Now here's the possible returns. No? So basically what this problem is telling us that in investing in Ayala Corporation, they have say forecasted that the returns returns are somehow linked to the state of the economy. So sabi nila, if it's under the recession, the possible returns would be 10%. If it's normal, then it's 15%. If it's prosperity, then the possible returns would be at 20%. No? Then also provided are the probability distributions. No? So let's have problem number 1. O, tandaan class ha, the requirement is to determine the expected return on their planned investment. No? So, paano natin gagawin yon? So, of course, we have given are the possible returns or RI. That's 10%, 15%, and 20%. Of course, the probability distribution. No? To class, take note that it should be equivalent to 1 or in this case, 100%. No? So, the return is calculated by multiplying the possible returns and the probability distribution. So that's 10% multiplied by 0.2 or 0.02, 15% multiplied by 0.60 or 0.09, 20% multiplied by 0.20 or 0.04. So all we have to do is add um, the results, so that would be 15%. So this is the expected returns. No? So what we've completed in this exercise class is we get the expected return, no, for Ayala Corporation. So remember, no, Piolo Corporation is planning to invest in Ayala, and then Ayala basically forecasted their expected or possible returns by means of probability distribution. So given the state of the economy, sabi ni Ayala, if we say, for example, worst case scenario, we go into recession, so the possible returns would be 10% only. Pero ano ba yung chance that we go into recession? So sabi, there's a probability that recession will happen by 20% chance. No? So that's 15%. No? So that's problem number 1. Okay, so we go now to assets risk. The assets risk can be analyzed in 2 ways. Number 1, standalone basis. So it is where the asset is considered by itself. So meaning treasury bills, for example, no, versus a stock. So we are assessing the risk on a per type basis, no, or per asset basis. Now, there's also another type called portfolio basis. So it is where the assets is held as one of the number of assets in a portfolio. So meaning collectively, no, so we analyze it. So in measuring risk for standalone, we have this so-called standard deviation. No? So this is a tool to analyze the risk or measure the risk in a standalone asset risk. No? So remember, pag standalone basis, it is where the asset is considered by itself. No? So meaning it is assessed on a per asset basis. No? So the formula is square root of variance or square root of standard deviation squared. No? So also provided is the formula for the standard deviation. Now to illustrate this, let's have problem number 2. So again, the requirement is to determine the standard deviation. So Piolo Corporation is planning to invest in Ayala Corporation. The firm expects that the possible returns are dependent on the state of the economy. So the same are provided below. Let's have problem number 2. So what I did here, class, is simply just put here the formula to get the standard deviation. So let's proceed. No? So again, let's compute first for the return, no? The expected return. So that's 10% multiplied by 0.20. That's 2%. 15% multiplied by 0.06. So that's 9%. 20% multiplied by 0.20, that's 4%. So that yan yung na-compute natin kanina, no? So next we have to compute for the other parts of the formula, no? So we have RI. RI is simply the possible returns less R or the return, no? And then raised to power of 2 or raised to squared, no? So paano natin gagawin yun? So 10% multiply by 10% less 15%. No? So raised to power of 2 or squared nga, no? So gawin lang natin yun sa lahat ng mga state of economy. And then right after that, next thing to do is to multiply it by the possible returns or the RI. So that's 0.02500 multiplied by 0.20. And then of course 0 multiplied by 0.06, it's 0. 0.002500 multiplied by 0.2, so that's 0.00500. No? So we get the sum, so that's 0.001,000. Now, of course, we're ready to calculate for the standard deviation. No? So kung napansin nyo class, the approach that we did is well, it's procedural, no? Step by step yung ginawa natin. No? Ulitin lang natin. Of course, I'm using Excel file in demonstrating the problem, no? So all you have to do is to follow the same procedure, but through the use of your calculator, no? So you should be able to get the same answer, no? So that's 3.16%. So again, what we did is first we calculate for the returns, no? So that's RI multiplied by the PI or the probability distribution. After that, after getting the returns, the formula now to do is, this is step 1, and then step 2 is to deduct the RE. So RE is 10% less 15%, then raised to the power of 2. No? So do that for the rest of the states of the economy. And then step number 3, of course, is to multiply it with the PI or the possible returns. No? So get the sum, and then from there, you have to get the square root, no, of this total. Okay, so the answer to problem number 2 is 3.16. Again, class, I encourage you to validate your answer using your calculator. You should be getting the same answer as 3.16. So that's problem number 2. To further cement our understanding of standard deviation, let's have problem number 3. No? So another example on standard deviation. So before we go to problem number 3, let's define what a standard deviation is. No? So standard deviation is a statistic that measures the dispersion of a data set relative to its mean, and it's calculated as the square root of the variance. No, basically that's what we've completed for problem number 2. No? So the standard deviation is calculated as the square root of variance by determining each point's deviation relative to the mean. If the data points are further from the mean, there is a higher deviation within the data set. No? Thus, the more spread out of the data, the higher the deviation. No? So let's have problem number 3. So again, let's calculate for the standard deviation. So Piolo Corporation has the following net income in percentage terms. The firm expects that the possible returns are somewhat in line with their historical results. No? So given are their returns for years 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. Okay, so in this case, class, the difference here is that, di ba, kanina, meron tayong 3 states of the economy, and we're distributed, not the probability into each of those, into each of that state of the economy. No, but this time, we're given data for the return, no, for each year. So all we have to do is, of course, get the average. No? So that's 20% for years 2016 to 2019. Again, step number 2 is multiply the RI less R, then raise to the power of 2. No? So that's 0.05 for 2016, 0.01 for 2017, and then 0.25 for 2018, 0.13 for 2019. Now we get the total, or the sum, that's 0.43. Now, class, in this type of problem, uh, because we're given four, say, 4 years of data, what we need to do is get the square root and then divide by, 4 is a number of years involved less 1, no? So this is a standard formula, no? So but just so be clear, this 4 here accounts for the number of data. So meaning if we are given more than 4 years here, then use the number of years indicated, no? So sabihin natin na meron ka pa data tour for 2020, 2021, then we'll use 6 here, no? So the standard deviation is 38.05%. No? So that's problem number 3. Okay, so in measuring risk, standard deviation measures total or standalone risk. No? So the larger the standard deviation, the lower the probability that actual returns will be closer to expected returns. Of course, the larger the standard deviation is associated with the wider probability distribution of returns. No? Okay, so what are the types of risk, no, in terms of the portfolio? So remember class, kanina pinag-usapan natin is on per asset basis. No? But this time, let's talk about in the context of portfolio, meaning group of securities. No? So systematic risk. It is sometimes called non-controllable risk or diversifiable risk. This results from forces outside of the firm's control and is therefore not unique to the given security. Also, there's the unsystematic risk, or sometimes called controllable risk, or the diversifiable risk, represents a portion of the securities risk that can be controlled through diversification. This type of risk is unique to a given security. So let's talk about the systematic risk. So systematic risk, we have this interest rate risk. This arises due to the variability in the interest rates from time to time. No? So previously, we've talked about the function of the Bangko Sentral of the Philippines in regulating the interest risk. No? There's also this concept of market risk, or the risk that the value of an investment will decrease due to movements in the market factors. Also, we have the purchasing power risk, or inflation risk. It is the possible reduction in the purchasing power of the expected returns. In terms of the unsystematic risk, we have 3 under this. No? So we have business risk, or the liquidity risk. Basically, when we say liquidity class, diba, this is the ability of the corporation or the company to pay its short-term obligations. No? So that's why this includes operational activities. Then we have financial risk, or the credit risk. It arises due to the change in the capital structure of the organization. No? So when we say capital structure naman class, usually, diba, we source out capital by borrowing or investments. No? So kaya nga, diba, when we're looking into capital structure, we look into really long-term liabilities and equity. No? Operational risks are the business process risks failing due to human errors. This risk will change from industry to industry. It occurs due to breakdowns in internal procedures, people, policies, and systems. So that's why operational risks fall under unsystematic risks because these risks are controllable. No? So meaning diversifiable risks, something that we can actually control by way of making alterations or changes within our operations. So especially in operational risk, sabi nga natin, these are mostly human errors. No? So by just simply looking into our processes and making sure that all say controls are in place, then we can prevent this from happening. No? Okay, so it may be specification to an industry or company and is caused due to deficiencies in one or more of the following. So there's lack of managerial ability, technological advancement in the process of production, procurement of raw materials, lack of human resources, change in consumer preferences. No? So meaning these are some of the factors um, affecting unsystematic or causing unsystematic risk. No? Even, no? So kita mo yung bullet number 1, lack of managerial ability. No? So of course, as we know, especially in a decentralized organization, managers are really tasked to oversee their own departments. No? So lack of, say, leadership capability would cause unsystematic risk, and we don't really like that. No? Okay, so let's talk about coefficient of variation. So it is a standardized measure of the risk per unit of return. No? So this is very basic, no? Because we've already discussed how to calculate standard deviation. No? So this time, let's look into COV, or coefficient of variation. Again, this is a standardized measure of the risk per unit of return. No? So standard deviation over expected return. Let's have problem number 4. And as you can see, class, no? Ito rin yung given no, sa problem number 3 natin. But this time, let's compute for the coefficient of variation. So let's have problem number 4. Okay, so since we've already calculated standard deviation, so all we have to do is compute for the coefficient of variation. So standard deviation of 38.05 over the expected return. So in this case, expected return is also calculated. So that's 20%. No? So in this case, class, na, remember, we're given 4 years worth of data, no, as to the returns. No? So all we have to do is get the average to get the expected return. Now, this is different from problem number 2, because in problem number 2, we are given states of economy and the probability distribution. So doon lang naman nagkaroon ng difference. No? So again, the answer to problem number 4 is 190%. Okay, so let's go now to required rate of return, or the now in required rate of return, we have this so-called capital asset pricing model. Again, in this topic class, we won't be required to compute for these elements. No, so there's say for there are people dedicated to provide us with this data. Our only task as accountant, financial accountant, or management accountants is to really derive the CAPM. No? So RA, this is the required rate of return of asset. RF is the risk-free rate. B is for beta, no? Or the volatility of the asset in relation to the market as a whole. And then RM is the expected rate of return of the market. Okay, so let's compute for the required rate of return following the CAPM model, or the capital asset pricing model. No? So it's CAPM. It should be it's the capital asset pricing model. No? So let's have problem number 5. O class, ha? Again, in capital asset pricing model, we won't be required to compute for the risk-free rate, the return on the market. Again, this will be available. There are a group of people or individual experts, no, that come up with this calculation. So all we have to do is derive the required rate of return. No? So in this case, given are the risk-free rate, 9%, expected rate of return on the market, or the RM, that's 12%, and the beta of 0.75. No? So all we have to do is derive it by Well, let's derive it using the formula. No? So that would be RF. So that's 9% plus beta multiplied by uh, 12% less 9%. No? So that would be 11.25%. This would be the required rate of return following the capital asset pricing model. Okay, so but let's try to also understand ano ba yung pinag-uusapan natin doon na portfolio beta. So portfolio beta is simply computed as the weighted average of the beta of all individual assets in the portfolio. Pero ano ba yung interpretation ng class? Baka naman beta lang tayo ng beta, no? So if beta is equivalent to 1, meaning the security is just as risky as the average stock. So of course, no, in here, we're comparing it with the other stock in the market, no. Of course, otherwise we can't be really be sure, no, whether the risks and the returns involved in a particular stock is beneficial, no. So we always have to compare it with the others, no. So if beta of this particular stock is greater than 1, sabi dyan, security is riskier than average. Of course, if beta is less than 1, the security is less risky than average. No? So ito lang yung pinaka-guide natin, class, no, in terms of assessing the risk involved or the embedded risk, no, in investing in a particular stock. Okay. So the rate of return on investment can be calculated as follows. So ulitin natin, class. Ha? Kanina, there's concept of CAPM, no? So that's I mean, if you're provided with information on the risk-free market and the beta, then you can use CAPM. But what if there's another set of information provided? Then this will be the formula to calculate for the rate of return. No? So it's price 1 plus D1 less P0 over P0 multiplied by 100. No? So actually yung 100 sa labas just to convert it into percentage. No? Pero pag-usapan natin ano ba tong P1? Ano tong D1 at saka tong P0? So class, in this case, P1 would be the price next year. D1 is the dividend next year. P0, this would be the price now. Ha? So yun lang naman yung tatandaan natin. Let's apply it to problem number 6, no? Para at least mas cement yung understanding natin to calculate the rate of return. Okay, so the requirement is, of course, calculate the rate of return for this investment. So Piolo has 1,000 pesos. He invested it and 1,100 pesos is returned after 1 year with dividend of 10 pesos. So very simple yung problem. Ngayon, pinapakompute sa atin yung rate of return. No? So let's have problem number 6. So in this case, class, sundan lang natin yung formula. Ha? Di ba sabi natin, P1 is the price next year. So, and then P0 is the price this year. So paano natin gagawin yon? So price next year would be 1,100. Diba? Returned after 1 year. And then with dividend of 10, so how much is D1? That's a dividend, no? So 1,100 plus 10, and then P0 is the price now. So therefore, that's the 1,000 pesos. No? So that's 1,100 plus 10 less 1,000 or 110 over 1,000 multiplied by 100 or 11%. So that's how to calculate the rate of return. Okay. Okay, so let's now go to portfolio return. A portfolio is a collection of investment all owned by an individual or firm, no? So class, we keep on talking about portfolio, no? Pero ito lang naman yung pinag-uusapan natin. Ano ba pag sinabi natin portfolio? Sabi collection of investments. So in my case, or siguro assess mo lang din ano ba yung mga portfolio mo. So, meron kang insurance, meron kang investment in mutual funds, investment in stocks, ano pa, investment in real estates, no, or real properties. So all you have to do is sum it up, then that would be your portfolio, no? So parang mas madali lang intindihin. So ito yung list of all your investments, no? Hindi lang dun sa stocks, it covers all other investments, no? Okay, so let's have problem number 7. No? So basically problem number 7, uh, problem 7 requires us to compute the expected portfolio return. So in this case, class, given our different stocks, no? So ito portfolio niya, pero parang sinasabi dito is meron lang siyang tatlong stocks, no? So Pioneer Corporation is considering investing in 3 stocks. Listed below are expected returns for each investment. Ito naman class, no? So when you're doing stock investment, ito namang expected returns, these are provided actually, no? Especially, yun nga, yung palagi natin sinasabi, yung Call Financial, no? Ito yung pinaka-broker natin. If we want, no, one of the brokers, if you want to invest in stocks, no, that's Call Financial. So given are the individual expected returns, FLI, we have 10%, PA 15%, and then web 18%. O, tandaan class ha, these are expected returns. This is not probability. Kaya hindi siya, wag mong expect na 100% yan, no? And then the amount to be invested, 20,000, 50,000, and 30,000. No? So ito yung plano na i-invest ni Piolo. No? So what is the expected portfolio return? So let's have problem number 7. Okay. So in problem number 7, we are given 3 different stocks. No? So the first thing to do, again, let's attack this problem by way of breaking down, no, into procedures or steps, no? So again, we have 20,000, 50,000, and 30,000 for FLI, PA, and web respectively. Kunin natin yung sum. So that's 100,000. Kunin natin ngayon next yung weight. So paano yun? Oh, parang ano lang ito, basic na to. Kunin mo lang yung allocation. So that's 20,000 over 100,000, 20% for FLI, 50,000 divide by 100,000 or 50% for PA, and then 30,000 over 100,000 or 30% for weights. No? Now that we have the weights, next thing is to compute for the expected returns. No? So 10% multiplied by 20% weight for FLI, so that's 2%. We have 15% multiplied by 50% or 7.5% for PA. And then for web, we have 18% multiplied by 30% or 5.40% for web. Then all we have to do next is get the sum of these 3. No? So the total expected portfolio return would be 14.9%. So ganun lang class, ang ginawa lang natin is really we broke it down into steps, no, para at least mas madaling sundan. Oops, actually that ends our discussion for the risk and return. Now, if you have any questions, please reach me through my email address, or again, you can course it through your class Beadles. No? So that would be all for today, and thank you for listening. Goodbye and stay safe.
This has been your instructor, Mark Gibson. Thank you for learning with us. See you in our next discussion. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!